Now, I'm waiting. He's winding. It could start at any time, so don't say anything bad. This is not yet. My internet speed is fabulous. Well, this is. Hi, folks. We are live. Beatles fans. Do I have something for you? Attention, Beatles fans. This is what we're going to do for you. We're going to tell you where you can go to enjoy the Beatles with Beatles people and learn about and celebrate the Beatles at on the Ed Sullivan Show. And here with me to talk about this event is Chachi LaPret, who is host of Breakfast with the Beatles, and we have Beatles magician John Logan, and they both join us to talk about what's coming up this Sunday. Ready, set, go. It's a city winery, and Chachi, you do it. You do the rest here for the next 5 minutes. I mean, 1 minute.
Yes. Well, on this day back in 1964, the day before February 7th, the Beatles landed in America. On February 8th, they had the day off and they walked around Central Park. George Harrison was sick in the hotel with the flu. And then February 9th, the Beatles performed on the Ed Sullivan Show, and it changed everyone in the United States. 73 million people, myself included. And so it's a big event. It's 60 years since the Beatles came to America. And our monthly residency, Bradley J, at City Winery. This is month, I think, 17 or 18. We've been doing it every month, and every show is different. And Sunday at noon, doors at 11 at City Winery, just a couple of blocks from North Station, the Boston Garden. We will celebrate the Beatles' arrival in America. Come together celebrating 60 years since the Beatles performed on the Ed Sullivan Show.
And you're going to have a special appearance by someone who actually saw was in the audience at some special show. Tell me about Debbie Gendler.
I can do that, John. Did you? I talk a lot because I'm a DJ, John.
No, it's all right. No, it's all right. Yeah, we'll have Debbie Gendler in the or virtually interview her virtually. She'll be in LA, and Debbie has a great background. She was actually invited by Brian Epstein himself, the Beatles manager, to the Ed Sullivan Show to see the Beatles perform live on the Ed Sullivan Show. So she was in the audience, and a lot of those Beatlemania clips that people see online, you probably have seen her face because it cuts to her a few times. So I think the video that we played during our show, she actually pops up on the screen in the crowd. So we're going to be interviewing her. It's going to be fun. I'll be doing some magic as well, so you'll learn about the Beatles through the magic that I perform. We have live music by the 60s. We give away prizes. There's a little bit of everything for everyone, so I truly cannot wait for this event.
So people love the band, the 60s. Someone you mentioned has seen them 44 times. That's a big deal.
Yes, and this gentleman has come to our show not 44 times, but pretty much every show, which is 17 or number 18 right now. But yeah, as John was saying, Debbie Gendler was one of the first girls in America to realize who the Beatles were in 1963 when a family friend was in London. They went into a record store and said, "What's the hottest record?" And the guy at the counter said, "Well, there's a band up north called the Beatles, and this is their album. Everyone loves them." She bought the album, brought it back for Debbie. Blown away. She's like, "These are the four cutest guys I've ever seen in my life." And then on that particular album was a note where you could send a letter to join the Beatles fan club. She sent a letter from America, New Jersey, in March. Didn't get a reply till October. Was invited to meet Brian Epstein with the intention that she would help promote the Beatles in America. And in gratitude, she got one ticket. Then she saw the Beatles at Suffolk Downs, at Shea Stadium, Ed Sullivan, and she met them in their hotel. And she has these profound stories. She'll be sharing those stories. We're giving away original Beatles vinyl from our friend Bob Walsh from Cheap Thrills Music. And Bradley J is our master of ceremonies, is our MC, is our guest in performing at all of our shows. And I say performing, he MCs brilliantly. and it's a lot of fun. So, and you know what? The weather's going to be great on Sunday.
Yeah.
Great prelude to what's that thing that people are doing at night? Oh, the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny. Yeah, I actually hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
So beautiful day to get out. City Winery has great food and wine available, and you can order right during the show. So you're it's kind of dinner, not it's lunch theater in a way. It's Beatles lunch theater. You can win prizes. I want to talk a little bit more about John's magic. It's tough to understand what the magic looks like, how it works, if you haven't seen it. But John tailors it all to the Beatles. It all has everything to do with the Beatles, and it's big. Big cards, big things, big props. Not like the guy that squashes the melons, but
Yeah.
big things. So it's not just like some guy holding a deck of cards. Is what my point is. It's showbiz. It's great. It's all very.
I try to do magic where I'm using everyday items and I borrow things from the audience, but it's all centered around the Beatles. So, for instance, if I try to pick up maybe a song that someone is thinking of, and I'll tell the backstory behind that song. Again, we use big jumbo playing cards. People write down things. So it is a really interactive show, and my goal through the magic is for you to learn about the Beatles and maybe hear some stories that you may not have heard beforehand, and how their creative process worked, and how their brains developed new material. And so it's really, really fun. Every show is different. I customize the magic specifically for this show. So nowhere in the world will you see this type of magic. Just at this show is customized. Every show is customized for the magic's customized for the show. And every show we do is different. So last month we had Beatlemania. We talked about Beatlemania. This month we're talking about the Ed Sullivan Show. Their iconic performance on the Ed Sullivan Show. So all the magic will be themed around that. And it's great. I'm actually in Florida right now, sunny Florida, for a conference. So I will be flying up the day before our show, and it's gonna be all good. It's gonna be all good. But yeah, I've been jotting down ideas here, so it's gonna be a great show. I can't wait.
Okay, so I'm taking a look at the picture of the Beatles with Ed Sullivan. I think that Ed Sullivan show is fascinating. I watched it the other day. And I see Ringo, George, and Ed, and John, and Paul. And you just said that George had the flu.
Yes.
And and he's standing right beside Ed Sullivan. You think he gave him the flu? He must have.
He was under the care of a doctor at the hotel.
Okay.
George's sister Louise was with him and kind of nursed him back to health. And I think he got like a B12 shot to get him through it. Yeah, he was down and out, but he performed. And even with the run through, they had Neil Aspinall stand in George's place, so they would get a shot of what it would look like when all four were there. But I remember that night, Bradley, I watched it in Cambridge as a young kid, and my sister and two older brothers, and it was a life-changing event that's embedded in my head. And Brian was very astute. He made a deal with Ed Sullivan to do 3 appearances for $10,000, thinking the marketing alone for the Beatles doesn't require them to charge like Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley would charge Ed Sullivan $50,000 for 1 appearance. And Brian made a deal with Ed to do 3 appearances in February for $10,000. And it was a good deal for Ed and a great deal for the Beatles, because it just blew it wide open.
All right. Is there any chance we can get you to, at some point, you don't have to do it right now, but your Ed Sullivan imitation?
Right here on our stage.
Who are some of your other guests, Ed?
Well, we have Topo Gigio. I used to watch Ed Sullivan all the time when we were kids. At Sunday night, you always got around the TV at 8:00 on CBS for the great Ed Sullivan, the ultimate MC. With all due respect to you, Bradley J.
Oh yeah,
he had a variety show where he exposed people to all kinds of things. In fact, on that same show, Bradley J., they had the cast of Oliver, and Ed would have Broadway cast come in and do scenes live from their play. They had the cast of Oliver, and playing Oliver that night was Davy Jones of the Monkees.
Man, that's something.
Yep.
I don't want to get too far off track, but imagine being Ed Sullivan, like what his week was like. The guests are coming in. I'm sure he's got to do all kinds of negotiations and stuff, and kind of Saturday Night Live-y, right? I mean, it was taped, but still, you got to put together a show every week, right?
That is correct. And you know what's worse? For the other performers on that show that night, they were all completely eclipsed. And it's tough to go out there after the Beatles first opened the show with 3 songs, and then there's a comedy duo, and then Oliver, and everyone in the audience is there for the Beatles. So whenever there was an opening act for the Beatles, they had to deal with the fact that it'd be tough to get through to the audience because they're too busy screaming, "We want Beatles."
I also heard a rumor that there was a magician on the same bill that night, and I don't know if this was true, but I heard that he was using colorful silks or something like that. But because everything was aired in black and white, no one at home knew what the magic was because it was all black and white. But yeah, it's just a funny story how Ed Sullivan gets so many different acts up on his show.
So, John, when you watch this Ed Sullivan thing, what are your thoughts about not just about the Beatles, about the time, about the show? I'm blown away by the whole thing. I like to see the other bands, not just the Beatles, but they had all these wicked cool bands like the Animals on. And having the Animals on was weird because they were dark. There is a house in New Orleans. And it was a black background. And this is like a happy time. The 60s were, people are goofy. Debbie Reynolds type. It's a Debbie Reynolds type of world then, and they got the Animals coming out on Ed Sullivan's show, which is pretty weird. I like seeing these other bands that were around when the Beatles were around. So, what are your thoughts on that whole thing, the show?
Yeah, well, the thing I loved about Ed Sullivan, and I think his personality was just so outgoing, and he just had that charm to him that everyone loved, and just like you said, Bradley, he brought on different types of acts. And Chachi, and you know the story better than I do, but he kind of accidentally saw the Beatles at some point, right?
Yep. I'm a huge Ed Sullivan fan, so I know his wife's name is Sylvia. They were at the Heathrow Airport, and about 3,000 kids were there. And Ed's asking people, "Is the Queen coming in, or why is everyone here?" And they said, "No, that's because of a pop band called the Beatles." And that's how he first heard about it.
Speaking of accident, you didn't happen upon the Beatles on the show by accident. This is not the first time you saw them. How did you find out about the Beatles, both John and Chachi?
Well, as far as the Ed Sullivan show goes, from November on, and then in January when I Want to Hold Your Hand went to #1, we knew who the Beatles were. They were being played like crazy on the radio, AM, and then the announcement that they were going to be on the Ed Sullivan show, and so that led up to the huge excitement all through January. We can't wait for the Ed Sullivan show. And so that's how kids in America heard about it. When I Want to Hold Your Hand went to #1, and that was Brian Epstein's goal. I'm not bringing the Beatles to America until they have a #1 record. In January, they did. In February, they were in America.
Well, how about you, John?
Yeah, I think I just learned about him just through the Beatles. I know some people, their introduction to the Beatles was the Ed Sullivan show. I think mine was kind of the other way around. I got introduced to the Beatles with the one CD with the red cover and the yellow one, and I just thought that they sounded so different. And just the more I just looked into the Beatles, once you Googled the Beatles, right, the first thing that pops up is the Ed Sullivan show, and then watching them on there, and they're just all in sync with each other. They're wearing the same thing. They're bowing at the same time, which I think is great. I think Brian Epstein had that vision of working as a team because, before they were on that Sullivan show, they would go in the Cavern Club in Liverpool and Germany, and they would wear the leather jackets, and they were just throwing things up on stage at each other, and it was just kind of a mess, but everyone loved them. And then Brian Epstein said he had the vision and said, well, if we want to make it in show business, we have to work together as a team. Let's, rather than leather jackets, let's use suit jackets. Let's bow at the same time. And I think I really credit Brian Epstein. I've always thought he was the fifth Beatle because he really saw the potential for the Beatles and took it off from there. Yeah.
When at the end of each show, come together show, you guys should bow at the same time. when you leave.
That's a good idea.
That's a great
Go.
idea.
Thank you
We
for
will do
coming. Boom, like that. And, so
I like that. I like that.
Great idea.
I want to run through the facts again. If you've stayed with us this whole time, folks, it's going to be a big. I'm looking forward to it so much. Sunday, beautiful day. Here's what you're going to do. Let me walk everybody through their day on Sunday. You get up maybe 9 o'clock. You're sleeping a little bit, right? You get up at 9, splash some water on your face, put on your best cool rockin' duds, and you either drive or take the T or whatever down to City Winery, which is on Beverly Street, 80 Beverly Street. Just think Haymarket Station where the T is. It's right near there, 1 block from there. And you get there maybe 11:30 because doors are at 11, shows at 12. Get on in, order something to eat or not, something to drink or not. And then wham! At 12 o'clock, I'll come bounding out and the show will begin. And these guys, Chachi and John Logan, will work there. They both work magic. One works magic with magic and one does everything else. Not everything else, but you know what I mean.
No, that's correct.
And there's going to be prizes and questions and trivia questions. I don't know the answers. I'm not a Beatles expert, but I love the trivia questions best because I like to try. A lot of times I'll just say, I'm going to say George to every answer, and sometimes I get one right. And then there's the band. I can't wait to see the 60s. That's a band.
7-piece.
Never heard of them. Had you heard of them? I had never heard of them.
No, but they play a lot around town. And as I said, it's a 7-piece band on that one City Winery stage. It should be fun.
And some dude, Doc is his name, right?
Yes.
Who's a regular, has seen them 44 times. I wonder what their stomping ground is.
Yeah, and Beth, one of our other regulars, she said that the band's phenomenal, and the lead singer has just an incredible voice.
Right.
Beth was raving on about her voice. So I can't wait to see them up on stage doing their thing.
Awesome. Well, I had a fantastic time last time, and I'm expecting an even better time this time, especially because of the weather. I can't even fathom what 50 degrees feels like. John, what is it down where you are in Florida right now?
It's actually, I have not been outside today, honestly. We were just finishing up some presentations. Oh, but it looks like it's 71 degrees out right now. So maybe I'll head outside and go on the rooftop bar.
At noontime? That's good. That's a good plan.
Good plan.
Okay, you guys, thanks to you both, and thanks, of course, to executive producer Stephanie LaPrette, who wasn't able to make it this time. She'll be there, kind of keeping everything together.
Yep.
As you guys perform, I'll be there. I can't wait to meet everybody. And I guess that's pretty much it.
That's it, Bradley. See you Sunday, buddy.
If you folks are Beatles fans or no Beatles fans, share this little broadcast. If I'm gonna, it'll remain up for a while, and you can share it on Facebook or whatever your favorite social media platform is, etc. So thanks, guys, and we will see you all on Sunday at City Winery, Boston, 80 Beverly Street. That's February 11th, Sunday, February 11th.
Yep.
Beautiful. At noon. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Bradley.
You're welcome.
Okay,
And
buddy.
we are almost. Oh, look at that.
What the hell is that?